What's up, everybody? I'm Dieter Kurtenbach. This is Bets Against the Spread with Line Movement, joined by Joe Holka and Matt LaMarca. As always, happy Tuesday morning to you. Hopefully, you're recovering from whatever the hell that football game was last night. We have a fairly interesting, I won't say excellent, I'll say fairly interesting slate of games coming up starting on Thursday. Thursday Night Football's back, everybody. The bad news is that it's the Giants and the Eagles. Oh, the NFC East. What a tire fire. Let's go to a man who's out east. Let's go to Matt LaMarca, and let's get your initial thoughts first off on this contest. It's technically a contest between the Eagles and the Giants. How you feeling about it? Started off Eagles minus 6.5-point favorites. We're now at -4 with a 43.5 total. Matt, your thoughts?
Yeah, the Giants, they could theoretically tie for first place in the East if they win this game. Like, for a team that was considered the second worst team in the league through the
Yeah.
first 5 weeks, they are one win away from being in first place in the division. Like you said, the NFC East is just a crazy, crazy disaster. Philly they just can't catch a break injury wise. Their entire offensive line is hurt. Now Zach Ertz is hurt.
Mhm.
It's been a disaster. So I get why this line is where it's at. Um, I think that the Giants probably make some sense. The sharp activity early certainly seems to indicate the Giants, and we have yet to have a favorite win on Thursday Night Football this year, or cover, I should say, 0-4 against the spread. So I'm probably leaning towards the Giants early in the week, but I haven't really dug into this game too analytically yet.
Joe, I mean, in theory, the Eagles are a far better football team. Are you surprised at all that this line has come back to the Giants a little bit? As LaMarca mentions that the sharp action is on the Giants. I haven't seen anything to excite me about the New York Giants. Have you?
Yeah, there's a couple things that I was kind of looking at here. I think that one thing, I mean, everyone wants to talk about the injuries for Philly and how they're just ravaged, but like Miles Sanders, Zach Ertz, like both of those guys are hurt also. So it's not getting any easier for Carson Wentz. You really feel for Carson Wentz at this point.
Yeah.
I think what's, from a betting perspective, what's the most interesting here is that the Eagles, they still have a pretty strong defensive line on the other side. So they're going to be able to get through this offensive line for the Giants that has been relatively poor, like probably a bottom 5 offensive line in the league. And we know that Danny Dimes gets brutal under pressure. So that's one thing that we can count on in this game. 64% completion rate 2019 and 2020 while under pressure. So that's not good. I think that the Eagles defense can kind of get in the face of Jones a little bit just to make it a little bit easier on Wentz on the other side. Maybe they have a couple key takeaways to make this one work. So I think that I'm on the Eagles here overall, but I'm not sure if they cover the spread. I think it's that close, actually.
Yeah, I think that's fair. It's a pretty hardy spread, all things considered, and I don't think it's that surprising that it's come down, just given how much injury the Eagles are carrying right now. The number that interests me from this game is the total of 43.5, because if you're buying that the Giants can put up enough points to win the game, shouldn't you also be buying the over? I understand that it's the NFC East, that it's bad football, but I mean, it's not that bad. It's not 43.5 between two teams on Thursday night bad. And if you're going to get some degradation of the defense because it's Thursday night, right? And you're not getting the rest, you're not getting the chance to get juiced up, you're sitting in a hotel all day after traveling on a Wednesday. This just feels like a big over opportunity. And I can't believe I'm saying that about these two teams, but here we are. They've priced it right for me to go in on on an over at 43.5. Let's get into the Sunday slate. Let's start with, again, we're not really dealing with the cream of the crop here. Those games come later. Cleveland and Baker Mayfield, who were really bad last week, and Joe Burrow, who wasn't that bad, though they ended up losing that game, if I remember correctly. This line opened up at 4. They're in Cincinnati for the Browns. It's now moved to 3.5. The total on this one is 51. We'll start with you, Joe Holka. Bounce back game for Baker Mayfield, or were the problems that we saw on Sunday things that you expect to continue into the future?
Yeah, this was an interesting one. Like anytime we get like a second game in the division already, we have to be paying attention to that. So the Browns did beat the Bengals, a higher scoring game actually in week 2 at home, but now they're on the road. I think that normally we see some of these games tend to be lower scoring second game in the division. So it's an interesting one. I think this is another one. Like we're starting off with 2 games that I think are relatively close. Like I could see the Browns winning this game, but I don't know if they cover the spread. I think that my kind of clear lean in this one is just probably going to be on the under. But how do you feel about it, LaMarca?
Yeah, I think I like this as a bounce back spot for the Browns. The big thing with the Browns is they need their running game to set up the passing game. Like I've been saying all year that Baker Mayfield is not winning games for you this year, and apparently he's not even finishing them anymore. As we saw Case Keenum enter the game for Baker last week.
Right.
So Cincinnati is definitely a team that you can run the ball against. I mean, the Browns racked up over 200 yards against them in their first meeting. They were, able to control the game with their running backs. Now, can they do that again? I don't know if they'll get to 200 again, but I think that they should make things much easier for Baker than they were last week. Pittsburgh, we keep talking about Pittsburgh. They are super legit. Their defense is great. Their offense is good. Chase Claypool is now a legitimate like star wide receiver, I guess. So I think that this is a much, much better spot, obviously, as the spread indicates. But like Joe said, that second game in the division is always kind of interesting. So I think that I lean Cleveland here as this being a bounce back spot, but we'll see just how interested I am as the week progresses.
I'm with you, LaMarca, on the bounce back spot for Cleveland, just because they'll be able to. They're playing a team that's more in their ballpark, right? Like the Steelers are clearly a superior team, and they established it early. Cleveland got into a negative game script, and they didn't really stand a chance at that point because against that Pittsburgh defense, if they know what's coming, they're going to stop it. Only way you can beat Pittsburgh on defense is being able to mix and match and keeping them off balance. The Browns were never going to do that, not when they're learning a new offense and not when they're one-dimensional, as they had to be in that game because they fell behind early. I'm buying Baker Mayfield bouncing back. I'm buying the weapons that he has around him. I don't know if I'm buying Joe Burrow. I feel very hesitant to do that. What I am buying is something that I'm so glad you brought up here, Joe. Second division game, 51-point total. I'm taking the under. These two teams should know each other too well by now to put up a ton of points. Like you're going to get well-designed defenses in this game. Now, can they execute? Who knows? Probably not, but they should at least be set up for success on the defensive side. So I'm taking the under on this one. We have 2 total bets by your boy already through this, and we might do another one here because it's Dallas and the Washington football team. If they could just get rid of the NFC East, that might be ideal just for our general well-being. Dallas opens up as 2-point favorites, or they opened up as 3-point favorites. It's now 2, unsurprisingly, after whatever the hell that was last night. You can get a 2.5 on FanDuel in New Jersey. Total in this one is 47.5. I guess I asked the same question in a different way. We'll start with you, Matt LaMarca. Bounce back game for Andy Dalton?
No. The thing with Andy Dalton, as I was reminded yesterday, is that he needs like optimal conditions for him to succeed. And I thought that throwing to that talented group of wide receivers would be enough. But this Dallas offensive line is just in complete disarray. They're literally down all 5 starters.
Yep.
I don't know if their all-world guard will be back in the lineup next week after getting hurt. But either way, the best case scenario for them is they're down 4 starters at the position. And now they have to take on a Washington team with a pretty good defensive front. You guys may remember them recording 8 sacks versus a banged up Eagles defensive line in week 1. So Dalton was under pretty much relentless pressure last night against the Cardinals. And I think Washington can duplicate that. I think Washington makes a lot of sense here this week.
But Joe, I mean, can Washington actually put points on the board? You got Kyle Allen starting as
everyone can score against Dallas.
This might be the week where that's not the case. I don't know. What are your thoughts, Joe?
Yeah, I think this one, I expected to see a little bit more from Andy Dalton also. We're reminded of the bad, I think, a little bit more easily than sometimes we can remember. Like we see Dalton coming in like, oh, the weapons, all these things. Like he was able to kind of like prop up a guy like AJ Green for all this time. And then we remember like what the last time we saw Andy Dalton, how bad he was. So it's a spot where like, yeah, like this is not a good matchup overall for Andy Dalton, just because we know that Washington is going to bring pressure. Like LaMarca brings up the offensive line injuries. Like that is a huge concern in this game overall. So I don't even know if it matters a ton what Washington's going to do on the offensive side, because the Dallas Cowboys defense is pretty much, I mean, they're one of the worst in the league too. So I think that if there's going to be any success on the other side, I think it's more about Andy Dalton and is he going to be able to rebound here? And I don't know if I think he can. If you want to just kind of look at some of the things that this Cowboys team has done, they have been really good in the division. Their last 16 games against this division, 14-2 straight up, 13-3 against the spread. Washington just 1-7 straight up in their past 8 games against the Cowboys. But I don't know. This one makes me a little bit nervous. Like the Cowboys are one of 2 teams that has yet to cover the spread this year. It's just not great. The Cowboys team this year against the spread has been like literally my Derrick Henry and DFS. It's just not fun.
Yeah, and obviously it's the other team is the Jets. So anytime
this
you can be
Cowboys team is not just one of the worst in the league defensively. This might be the worst defensive team all time.
Wow.
When things are said and done, they're on pace to allow almost 600 points this year. Look at their last 5 games. 39 points allowed, 38 points allowed, 49 points allowed, 34 points allowed, 38 points allowed. They are giving up over 40 points a game over their last 5 weeks.
How many points did they give up to the Giants?
34.
Yeah, that might be all you needed to say there. It's one thing to like go down to Kyler Murray. It's another thing to get cut up by Danny Dimes. And I'm glad you brought up
49 to the Browns, who scored 7 points last week.
Well, the Steelers are good. You're not wrong. I'm interested to see that one develop. If that's the hot take of the week, we're going to need about 10 more weeks to find out if you're right. They're tracking that way. I'm glad you brought up the stats, because I initially recoiled, and then you bring up the stats and you're like, well, you might be onto something here. I'm glad you brought up the offensive line. In my other job as a columnist for the Mercury News in San Jose, I talk a lot about like identity, right? Like what is the identity of this team? The identity of the Dallas Cowboys is a running team behind an awesome offensive line. They don't have an offensive line that's awesome anymore. I don't know how they're going to reestablish an identity when they've been all in on this one for the last couple of years and do it on the fly with a backup quarterback. If you could sell the stock, if it's worth anything at this juncture, I'd sell it. Now, I don't know if I'd sell it to the point where I could get in on the Washington football team. This is a stay away at best for me, but man, big time problems in Dallas, and I don't think they're going away anytime soon. Here's another not so awesome game, but it could be interesting for betting purposes because there's a big fat total on this one. 56.5 for Detroit and Atlanta. Right now, the spread is 2.5 for the Falcons, who got their first win this past weekend against the Minnesota Vikings. This game started off as a 1-point spread, basically a pick 'em, and has already moved up to 2.5 in some places. Let's start with you, Joe Holka. Why is Detroit being disrespected like this?
Is that a thing? Disrespecting?
No, I'm just making crap up. I mean, this game is all sorts of weird, and I need you to make sense of it for me.
Yeah, I mean, this is one where I think that like we're looking at this Atlanta team on the other side, and we knew that there was going to be fireworks last week against Minnesota, and this spot against Detroit. Like it seems like a spot where like everyone that got on basically Detroit last week that kind of was disappointed, they should probably get back on the horse here, because I think that this game shapes up really well for points. Also, I think that just like anytime we're seeing a team like Atlanta that gives up so much on the defensive end, but also is willing to score points and play at a faster pace, I think this is one that like they might force Detroit's hand to play a little bit faster than they want to. So I think that overall this could be a higher scoring game. So I like the idea of that, but I think I'm on the Falcons. It's not that I'm going to completely flip-flop because we've talked about this Falcons team not being very good. But I don't think very highly of this Detroit team. I don't believe some of the success that they had earlier in the season.
LaMarca, you got any trends? You got anything that can sway me one way or another? Because that was a very conflicting argument there, Joe. I'm not going to lie to you.
You got to play both sides, man. That is a professional argument right there. Because
you're
I'm
hedging
never
your
wrong.
own. Never wrong. Got to play both sides. That way I always come out on top. Matt LaMarca, give me some rhyme and reason to this contest.
The one trend that I have in this game, and it's the most confusing trend in my database, I
Oh,
don't
bring it on.
understand why
Bring it on,
it's
baby.
so powerful, is that road dogs of 3 points or fewer just historically are good. 12-5 start this season in that situation. 424, 384, and 50 since 2004. So it's a 4% ROI overall, 38% ROI this year. I don't know why. I guess the
home field advantage that they're still calculating that in.
That's my thesis, is that maybe we overvalue home field advantage between two teams that are this even. I'm going to give a slight edge to the Lions. I do think that the Falcons are probably better than their record indicates. They should have, won at least one more game this year, probably multiple games. Now that they have a healthy Julio Jones back, it seems like their offense is going to start firing on all cylinders again.
Yeah.
Maybe this team was happy to get rid of Dan Quinn. So, yeah, I get this line. I don't think it's crazy by any stretch of the imagination, but I will just take the points here. I think that that's what this trend says to do, is when you get two teams that are this close, just grab the points.
I think that's fair. Is that 56.5 point total too rich for either of yours, Blood? Because we know both of these teams can score, but one or two bad possessions can mess up a number like that pretty easily. And it's not as if these are, well-tuned, well-oiled machines here. I mean, you can get a weird turnover here or there. Is 56.5 just too high? Is it too big 12 for either of you?
I mean, these are ones I struggle with. Like, you know that there's going to be a lot of points and pace to this, but then they set this line at 56.5. Like, it's tough. So, like, I end up like being overweight in these ones on DFS and underweight in these ones in the betting markets usually, because especially unless you feel like you have like a huge edge on a line like this, which I personally don't know if I do, just because I think that like it's pretty obvious there's going to be some points here. These are stayaways for me. I think the only time that I'm like just hammering overs is where I feel like I have a little bit of a difference in opinion than like most people.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. LaMarca, you got any thoughts on it? You can say no. It's fine.
No, I'm going to break out another trend for you here.
Hit me.
If you look at totals of 55 points or more, so we're talking, the real upper echelon of totals. Overs have gone just 2 and 8 this year when we're looking at totals of at least 55 points. And in terms of all time, it's also a very negative sample. So I think that once we start getting above 55 points, it's too many points.
Yeah.
Even for teams like this who can put up points with the best of them and tend to allow a lot of points. So I will always just take the under on these big totals, but we've got 3 of them this week. Like they're becoming a more regular occurrence. So
welcome to the new kind of football. I don't know if it's good or bad, but it certainly has a lot of points.
Right. And if it was something where that trend was like 5-5 this year or something like that, I would be much more hesitant to say, new football, we can't just automatically fade big totals, but 2 and 8, 2
and 8. I'm with you. There's just so many ways that it can go wrong and a pretty narrow band of ways it can go right. It requires offenses again to just be almost perfect to put up totals like that. Even if you have a fast game and a lot of possessions, it's just, I don't know if these defenses are that bad. It requires a lot to get over 56.5. But, I might play the over anyway, just because it'd be fun. Carolina and New Orleans, the Saints are giving 7.5 in this one. 51 point total, which back in the day, 51 used to be a big number. Now it's pretty ho-hum. Joe, are people now overcorrecting after Carolina kind of laid an egg against the Bears? People were hot on Carolina. They play a Bears team that no one likes, including pretty much everybody in Chicago, my hometown. And then now 7.5? I'm just going to come out and say it. I think the Saints are secret trash. So I'm not sure that they deserve a touchdown and a hook here. Where do you stand?
Secret trash. I don't know about that one.
Okay.
So I'll say this: it's Tuesday, and this is one that I've come full circle on already as I was kind of going through some of these games. So like I was looking, the first thing I always look at, and you guys know this, is like the defensive line versus the O line. Is there going to be pressure? So Saints, they're like they're in the top third roughly in kind of what the way they pressure got, but Panthers middle of the pack, so not a ton there. But if you do think that the Saints are going to be able to get pressure, Teddy has actually been really good. 75% adjusted completion rate this year under pressure. I guess the other side of it is like this New Orleans team knows Teddy very well, right? So if they're going to bring him some different types of blitz packages, I mean, they're going to know exactly where he would struggle. So I think that's one thing. I think also that people want to talk about Mike Davis, and maybe I have just all these weird biases, I guess, against Mike Davis because he cost me a lot of money last week. But no Christian McCaffrey in the Superdome on the fast track, like that's something that I think hurts this offense overall. I think that this New Orleans secondary looks a little bit healthier, so that should improve their pass defense a little bit. So I think that this one still is all about this Saints team. Like I got a couple Matt LaMarca trends here, but I think the monthly trends are interesting. Even like some of these ones earlier in the season, I think is there's value in them. So October since 2015, 8-19 of those games they've covered the spread in terms of the Saints. So they've actually won 14 consecutive October games straight up dating back to 2016. So that's pretty crazy. The other side of it, like I said, I've kind of come full circle a little bit. They're past 16 games when they're favored by a touchdown or more. They're just 7-9 against the spread. So it's kind of a coin flip in that regard. I do believe in the Saints here. And I don't think that the Panthers team, I guess I don't believe in them in the Superdome when they're banged up against this defense that I do think is getting healthier, I guess.
Fair play. Matt LaMarca, how do you feel about the total in this game? 51 implies two pretty high-flying offenses, and I'm not sure that's what's actually happening in this game.
I do kind of like the over because I'm definitely in on Carolina this week.
Gotcha.
I think that Carolina went from being too overvalued last week versus the Bears to now they're being too undervalued.
Here.
They never deserved to be as big of favorites last week as they were, but they also don't deserve to be getting more than a touchdown in this game.
Yeah.
In general, if you take underdogs of at least 7 points in divisional games, you're looking at a 5% ROI since 2004. So historically big underdogs in divisional games is a nice bet. But I just think that this Carolina team is okay. And Joe says be wary of Christian McCaffrey stuff. He could theoretically be back this week. It seems more likely like he'll return next week, but they haven't officially ruled him out for week 7. So if he's back, I feel even better about the Panthers. But I do think that this Saints team is probably a little bit overrated and this Panthers team is a little underrated.
I don't need to push any further because you gave me the exact answer I was looking for. My biases have been confirmed. All right. So Buffalo coming off of 2 just dud games. I mean, not good from Buffalo. They're 12.5-point favorites on the road at the Jets because the entire Jets season, and in fact, perhaps their entire decade, has been, even going back halfway through last decade, been a complete bust. 12.5, though, in week 7 is something. We'll start with you, our Jets expert, Matt LaMarca. Can you possibly bet the Jets this week?
So before I get into this game, I just want to say I had an epiphany last night.
Oh, did you? Did you now? Okay, hit me.
The Miami Dolphins are the best team in the AFC East.
Woof.
They might be. They probably are. They are.
The Miami Dolphins are the best team in the AFC East. Their defense, since they've gotten Byron Jones back, is good. Now, granted,
it is.
Beating up on the Jets is not that big of an accomplishment, right? Everybody beats up on the Jets, but they shut the Jets out. That's got to be the only shutout this season, right?
To my recollection.
That's the only one I can remember.
Yeah.
And Ryan Fitzpatrick is doing enough with these teams. I looked it up today. You can get them at plus 700 to win the AFC East. And I am in on them at that number. So anyway, that's my tangent. And now let's go to this game and just bet the Bills. The Jets are just a disaster. This line should be like 17 points.
So we're talking like early last season Miami Dolphins kind of line.
We're talking, this is the worst football team I've ever seen.
We say it every week. No one disagrees with you.
So,
I don't know if Buffalo's any good, though. They can't play. They don't play a lick of defense.
Doesn't matter.
Okay.
You just made an argument, though, that they were shut out last week and how the Dolphins shut a team out, so that makes them the best team in this division. Like, I think you literally just contradicted yourself. The Jets are that bad. Like, where would this line need to be?
It's more than that. How good did they look against the 49ers 2 weeks prior?
Man, you're sleeping on the Bills. You're sleeping on the Bills, dude.
You guys grabbed the shovel and literally buried the 49ers live on air. I was here for it.
Happy
and
to
then they beat the Rams.
I'm sorry.
So,
I need your guys' perspective because I'm too close to the sun here. Did anything the 49ers do on Sunday Night Football impress you in any way, shape, or form?
They won that game the same way they've won every game.
No. Last year they absolutely kicked asses, and this year they played the Jets and the Giants, so those are 2 wins. And then they get a win over Jared Goff because Jared Goff was throwing with the wrong hand all game. Like I don't know what the hell happened to Aaron Donald, but we'll talk about the 49ers and the Rams a little bit later. 12.5. Let me ask you this then, LaMarca.
Yeah.
To what number could this go to where you would finally get scared?
17.5.
Oh my God. Okay. Fair enough. That's your prerogative. Are you going to lay action on this?
Yeah, I'm betting against the Jets until we start getting laughable point spreads. And maybe
12.5 doesn't qualify.
No, that just means if the Bills win by 2 touchdowns, they cover this spread. And I feel like the Jets should lose this game by 5 touchdowns.
Yeah. That's pretty good logic. Joe Holka, you have anything to add?
I mean, is there a line big enough that would make you not that line that you just said was 17? Like I don't even know if I would take a long look at that one. Like I would still hammer that. Like this team through 6 weeks, we mentioned before, there's 2 teams that haven't covered the spread this year. It's Dallas and it's the Jets. So
only one of those is a surprise.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. In terms of the Dolphins shutting out the Jets, I don't care about that at all. It's still the Bills division, in my opinion, even though they lost to 2 tough conference teams, Titans, Chiefs. I still think that the Bills come in here and make an absolute statement that they're the real deal. And it's not just that I like being all in on this Bills team. I just don't. I'm not ready to get there, I guess, on the Dolphins like LaMarca. I think I'm going to need to see a little bit more. And I still think that the Bills, they're the real deal. I think you can be pretty confident in this one, no matter where the line goes.
I just think that logic is funny.
What's that?
Nobody cares about the Dolphins win over the Jets, but the Bills are going to come in and make a statement this week against the Jets.
That's true. That's fair.
I mean, Joe, let's talk about it for a second here.
Mm-hmm.
Buffalo's defense has not been good, and that's kind of their thing. And so now they're relying on Josh Allen to play well. The last 2 weeks he has not. First 4 he did. I know you're a Josh Allen truther, and we're just going to keep putting that label on you, whether it's right or wrong. But man, I'm very concerned about this Buffalo defense. They're getting pushed around, and they're making, on top of that, really stupid plays, really stupid penalties. That's just a sign of a frustrated unit that had higher expectations of itself that it can actually deliver. I'm selling the Buffalo defense. That doesn't mean that I'm not taking the 12.5 here, but come on. There's something up there in Buffalo.
I mean, let's just worry about that next week when they play the Patriots. I don't think we have to worry about it this week against the Jets.
That's fair enough. Joe Flacco's really gonna let them know how to play in the NFL. All right, Green Bay, Aaron Rodgers. They're coming off of a ass whooping at the hands of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They now get Deshaun Watson and the Houston Texans, who are kind of a hot mess. The total in this one is 56.5, depending on where you can get it. The spread, 3.5 points towards the Packers. Joe, I imagine you think this is a get-right game for Green Bay, but how many points can Houston put on this Packers defense?
This Houston team, like just on that side, before we move over to the Packers, like they can't stop the run, they can't stop the pass. Like there's just a complete mess. And like we see this game shoot out last week, I could see this be a spot where a lot of people were hammering the Packers as kind of that late hammer in DFS or that afternoon hammer in DFS, and now they're going to want nothing to do with them. So I like the idea of going back to Rodgers. I like the idea of going back to Aaron Jones because I think this could be a game where the Packers win pretty easily. I think they could put up some points here. On the other side, this is a great game for fantasy, I think, because I think both sides can score, and I don't think Houston in particular can really stop anyone. So I think that even at that spot, what is it, 56 roughly on BlitzBet right now? So this is one where I think that I would be considering the over for sure.
What do you think, LaMarca?
Yeah, I like this spot for the Packers. I mean, I do think that Houston is maybe a little bit better than their record indicates, but we know the Packers are a good team, right? They're coming off of a down performance, but that Tampa Bay team is legit. They are, defensively, they are very, very good, and they were able to put a hurting on Aaron Rodgers. So I don't see that happening this week against.
You don't think the Houston defense is going to be able to pressure Aaron Rodgers on damn near every snap and play sticky defense on the back end? I mean,
that's a negative. That's a negative, sir. So, and I love this trend that I have here. It's about teams coming off of a blowout loss, meaning you lose the game by at least 28 points. Historically, good spot to buy low on a team. And if we look at teams that are good, aka have a winning percentage of at least 60%. Winning percentage of at least 60%, coming off a loss of at least 28 points. They have gone 26, 12, and 1 against the spread the following week. So
that's good money.
That's over a 31% return on investment. I'm not overthinking this one. I'm locking in the Packers, and I'm doing it now before this line goes up anymore.
Yeah, I'm a little bit surprised, and LaMarca, you can probably enlighten me here a little bit more as per usual, but we're seeing 2/3 of the bets going for the Packers right now. We've only seen half a point being added to the spread. I think we are line movers, both literally and figuratively. We all are in on Green Bay to like 5.5, 6 here. Like I don't think that this is an appropriate number. Why hasn't it changed much? And when do you expect it to change, if you expect it to change at all, LaMarca?
Yeah, I mean, we're talking 2/3 of the bets, but it's literally Tuesday. There have been less than 500 total bets on this game. So
just not enough action.
Not enough volume. I mean, they have moved it half a point already. I do think that says something.
Yeah.
But, especially the move from 3 to 3.5. And then if it goes from 3.5 to 4, those are big moves. Those are points that matter. So, I would expect this line to get up another half a point, maybe even a full point, if the betting patterns continue. But I don't think they're going to want to go crazy, given just that Houston has looked competitive the past couple of weeks and are playing at home.
Very interesting. Very interesting. All right, this should be a good game. Seattle at Arizona, NFC West showdown. Two of the most entertaining quarterbacks in the league in the last couple of decades ever. I mean, it's just absolute mayhem with either of these guys in a good way. Seattle is a 3.5 point favorite on the road. The total's 56 in this one. God, it's like the Big 12, man. Kyler Murray must feel so at home. Right now, 71% of the bets are on Seattle, who are undefeated at 5-0 and coming off a bye. Meanwhile, Arizona, congratulations. You get to go for Monday Night Football. You go home, but now you get to play on Sunday against a team that's super rested. Thought that the NFL banned that, but it's 2020 and there are no rules. Joe Holka, are you in on the Seahawks in this one?
It's always hard to bet against my Cardinals, but this is not a great spot for them overall. You mentioned that they're on a short week. The Seahawks team is rested. They're a little bit healthier on the back end. Yeah. I think that there's at least an argument that like the Seahawks don't even try and pressure typically, which would be good for Kyler Murray on the other side. But overall, I think this is just a really tough spot. I think the Seahawks are the real deal this year. It's tough to watch my Cardinals just be in this division over the last couple of years, where it seems there's always someone that kind of separates from the pack a little bit. And I think that this year it's Russell Wilson. This guy is just on an absolute tear. I think that this game could shoot out pretty easily, but I do like the Seahawks side of it.
So you're keeping an eye on that 56. Probably too rich for my blood, but it's already up 1.5 from where it opened with most books. LaMarca, talk to me about this one because I imagine you have some sort of a trend with the bye and the short week and all that stuff.
You know, I love my trends.
There we go.
I do think that if I was going to play the over on one of these monster total games,
Yeah.
this would be the one.
Okay.
Just neither of these
Yeah.
teams are very good defensively, and they both have pretty explosive offenses. But again, I think this line is too short for Seattle. Like, I hate being on road favorites, because they're typically such public teams. But why is Seattle laying 3.5 points here? I continue to say Arizona is one of the more overrated teams in football, and certainly dismantling the Cowboys last night isn't going to change that fact.
Right.
This
They might
team,
get some more public action, though, because of that.
correct. That's what I'm saying. Like, they're not going to become less overrated following a 30-point win. So,
right.
Heading into last night, they were 18th in the league in DVOA. Like, that's not great.
No.
Nothing to write home about.
Unimpressive.
So I think that, laying less than 4 points with Russell Wilson coming off of a bye, which again, remember, favorites off of the bye are historically a very good bet. 162, 121, and 9 since 2004. That's a 12% return on investment. It's just a good spot for the Seahawks to just blow the doors off the Cardinals.
Joe, talk to me about Kyler Murray here for a second. He throws a lot of really bad interceptions. And this is not something I remember. And I watched damn near every one of his games last year because he's in the 49ers division. That was the team I covered. Like, what's going on with Murray? He has the weapons. I think the protection has been decent, good enough. He just seems to make some boneheaded throws. And it wasn't obviously the difference in last night's game, but it could easily prove to be the difference in this one. I know Seattle isn't very good on defense, but they're good enough to take advantage of boneheaded throws, and Kyler Murray's making a bunch of them right now.
Yeah, like you always want to call me, I guess, the Josh Allen truther, but one of the big things in the offseason was which quarterback could actually take that Lamar Jackson type of step, like a guy that we're not really considering to be one of the elite, but could be after this season. And I was actually on Kyler Murray versus Josh Allen. I liked both of them to take a step. We just haven't seen Kyler Murray develop as a passer as much as I expected that he would. Like you said, he's just making not very good decisions. The weapons are there, all of those things. So I've been a little bit concerned about Kyler Murray the last couple of weeks with what I've seen. I'm hoping that this is a spot where they come out and really surprise me. Or else they're just staring 3-3 in the face in this division where the Seahawks are just going to absolutely run away with it. So it's a tough one. I'm with LaMarca that normally trying to be on a road favorite is just not a spot you want to be right there aligned with the public. The Seahawks 9-1 straight up in their past 10 road games as a favorite, but against the spread, pretty close to even. So it's a tough spot, but I do think that I think the Seattle is just going to run away with it. I agree the line is nowhere near what it should be. Yeah,
it will be interesting. I mean, I can see ways that Arizona wins this game. It's just there's more of them for Seattle, and even though Seattle's a fundamentally flawed team, they have the better quarterback. And I think that maybe people give Murray a little bit more credit than he deserves at this juncture. I do think he gets there, but right now at this juncture, he's not Russ. And this line indicates that he's in Russ territory. He's not. We move on. San Francisco, New England at the beginning of the season looked like it was going to be a much better game than it is. I still think it's going to be at least tactically fascinating, but Jimmy Garoppolo and Cam Newton, neither has very many weapons. The defenses are all sorts of banged up. This is kind of a hot mess of a contest. Both teams need it in a real bad way. The line opened up at Foxborough, 5.5 points to the Patriots. That thing has moved all the way back. It is backing up like a 60-degree wedge. 2.5 points now.
Ooh.
For
Wonderful
New England.
Reference.
Thank you. I hit a couple of them on Saturday. The total's 45.5, 2.5 points for the Patriots. I have to recuse myself because I have no idea what the Niners are anymore other than really difficult to watch on a week in, week out basis. So we'll start with you, Matt LaMarca. Cam Newton pretty much unavailable to this team for the last 3 weeks. They've had all these COVID issues. I think they've practiced like 3 times in the last 16 days or something. They should, in theory, everything's in theory, it's 2020, have a full week of practice, maybe get Stephon Gilmore back in a real manner. Like, they should be as full speed as the Patriots could be going into a week 7 game. Is that enough to cover against a San Francisco team that is literally throwing, I mean, not literally, but in a very, very figurative, very heavyweight, they're throwing the kitchen sink at everything. I mean, they went all out in week 6 to win. They're going to have to do it again in week 7. They're holding nothing back. How do you see this one shaking out?
Yeah, so I always like to say bet numbers, don't bet teams, right? Bet
Right.
situations, don't bet teams. This is a classic numbers spot, right? Anytime I see a line open at 5.5 and move to 2.5,
Yeah.
that's just a big green light to take the team that is seeing that kind of positive line movement. We
Okay.
talked about it last week. San Francisco was the beneficiary of that kind of line movement.
Mm-hmm.
And sure enough, they took care of business. So
Yeah.
I think that getting the Patriots here now laying less than a field goal as opposed to laying nearly a touchdown
Mm-hmm.
is a great spot. Especially since even though the Niners won that game, they did lose Raheem Mostert.
Yes.
We're probably looking at a big JaMychal Hasty week, which
Hey, I like JaMychal Hasty, but he hasn't carried the ball more than 20 times in a game since high school. That's literal. That's a fact. So
seems like a problem.
might be an issue to make him the bell cow. Much as it was an issue making, Raheem Mostert a bell cow. He had carried it more than 20 times once in his entire NFL career before he was about to do it on Sunday night, and the entire body gave out.
So yeah, just anytime that you're gonna grab this big of an overreaction after one game, again, everybody was down on San Francisco. Now they're up on San Francisco, and everybody's down on the Patriots because they lost to the Broncos.
Yeah.
Just fade that public perception off of one game. Patriots are the team here.
Joe, how do you feel about New England in general? Just their offense has no rhythm, has no verve. Cam is standing back there waiting for guys to get open. They don't get open. He's refusing to throw them open. The lack of weapons is really concerning. They're not really going to go back to that sort of triple option wishbone style that they played early in the season because they don't trust Cam to stay healthy the entire year, and it's probably good reason. I don't know, man. It's hard to be in on New England here as much as everything LaMarca says makes sense. Can you see positive signs? Can you see a reason to get in on the Patriots this week?
Yeah, I guess one of the stronger arguments, I think, is that, like, say what you want about the 49ers, like, they've covered in 6 straight games as an underdog. This Patriots team, 11-4 against the spread in their last 15 against NFC teams. So I guess there's that side of it. I agree with LaMarca that if you're just looking at the movement so far, it would have you be all over the Patriots at this number. So I do agree with that side of it. I guess in favor of, if you did want to go the 49ers route, like this, we know this Patriots defense wants to try and focus on taking away one thing. That's a lot easier to do against Cam Newton on the other side than it is for the 49ers. We have guys like Kittle, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk. I think that there's still big play type of weapons for the 49ers that if the Patriots pick one of those, I still think that there's other ways that they can get it done. So I think that the argument overall is if you want to be on the 49ers side, I guess you're believing in what they showed us last week against Jared Goff. So it's a tough one. I think if I had to pick one side, I'm with LaMarca. I think you just bet the number here and what's happened so far with the line movement.
Yeah, I will point this out. I mean, Bill Belichick, as LaMarca's about to tell us with one of his Bill Belichick trends, probably the one how he does after a loss. And we'll get to that in a second. I know that's sitting there in the can. And if he doesn't have it, I'm going to give him a second to find it. You're betting on Jimmy Garoppolo if you're in on the Niners here. And Bill Belichick, as you mentioned, Joe, like he's going to take away the top option. So that means George Kittle's getting double teamed. And yes, Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk are there. Those guys have looked better running the ball than catching the ball this year because Garoppolo cannot push the ball downfield. They're going to take away everything that's less than 10 yards, the Patriots. They have the secondary to do it, and they certainly have the scheme, which is bespoke on a week in, week out basis to do it. They're going to dare Jimmy Garoppolo to throw it deep. And honestly, I just don't think he can do it. So all the more reason to get in on the Patriots. And here's another reason from Matt LaMarca telling us how good Bill Belichick has been after losses.
41-16 against the spread following a loss. Now, granted, they were technically coming off of a loss last week as well.
Valid. Do you have the double loss? Do you have back-to-back losses?
Loss. 6-2 in that situation. And they have never lost 3 games. They haven't lost 3 games in a row under Bill Belichick going back the entire existence of this database, which is since 2004.
Okay. That's a good that's a good trend. I think I'm going to take that trend. Now, mind you, that all includes Tom Brady. I guess there was a year of Matt Castle, but he made the Pro Bowl that year, so we're not going to get too down on him. All right, the team that beat the Patriots last week, the Denver Broncos, the upstart, the resurgent Denver Broncos, are going to get their asses kicked by Patrick Mahomes this week. They are 9-point underdogs at home at Mile High. The total in this one is, it started at 49.5. It's now 48.5, 48, depending on where you find it. Actually, the action is on Denver to cover right now. It's a big number, 9, don't get me wrong, but I don't know, man. Like, Kansas City just ran the ball. They didn't even try to pass it against the Bills in the rain, and they still won. The defense looked pretty good. This is still a championship football team. They still have a lot to prove, and I can't imagine that Drew Lock is going to go off. It's not like he really even went off against the Patriots. So, Matt LaMarca, how do you feel about this game? Where are you lying?
Denver games are very tough for me to handicap, especially games in Denver. I feel like it's like playing in a different place than like everywhere else in the country.
True.
Some people would have even said it's a mile high. I don't know. I don't know if that checks out.
I'll have to look into that. Yeah.
Just like in my head, Kansas City tends to struggle when they're playing in Denver. I can fact check that.
True.
Not true. Okay. Yeah. Joe Holka has me fact checked. Thank you, Joe.
I got one holstered for you. Go ahead.
Hit me, baby.
So basically, the Chiefs have won or covered in their past 5 trips to Denver. They're actually 9-0 straight up in their past 9 games against the Broncos, 8-1 against the spread.
So what you're telling me is the Broncos are due. Matt LaMarca, okay, how about this? Just tell me how Drew Lock covers 9. What is the manner in which that could happen? Because if we can't hypothetically come up with it, it ain't happening.
The way that it happens is this game goes under. The Chiefs score like 24 points or less, and the Broncos put 17 on the board. That's the formula for a Broncos cover. I don't feel great about it, but just out of principle, I typically don't bet lines this big unless they're against the Jets. And Denver's not. In which case,
feel free. Joe Holka, can you? It seems to me as if Kansas City's already had its AFC West dud game that they usually have against the Chargers, and you could almost argue that they did have it against the Chargers this year. But in losing to the Raiders, now that kind of is out of the way, and they'll take care of business the rest of the way. You can probably end up like 14-2. That's just how I see it. Are you seeing it a different way?
This is one of the few times I actually have some ammo against LaMarca just to play the other side of it. Normally he's on the sharp side. I'm just like trying to find things to argue with him. But Andy Reid against the AFC West, you mentioned it, but outside of that one flop that they had since 2015, the Chiefs 28-4 straight up against divisional opponents, 21-10-1 against the spread. Mentioned that they've just dominated the Broncos, but also these teams that cover big point spreads, there's a lot of argument for being on the other side, but the Chiefs, they're still one of those teams that have been doing really well. So double-digit point spreads, 4-1-1 against the spread in their past 6 games when they're favored by 9 or more, I should say. So I think that they're still in a great spot to keep rolling here. I don't really believe in the Broncos, but if we're going to bet on Belichick trends, I think we got to keep hammering these Andy Reid trends also.
Well, what's the Andy Reid trend? We know what he does coming off of a bye. What does he do coming off of a short week?
28. Oh, that's true. Short week. You got anything on that, LaMarca?
Come on, LaMarca.
I could look it up if you want to.
All right, why don't, we don't need to vamp. We'll move on to another game, and you just yell it out whenever you have it. Because trust me, we can multitask. Tom Brady going to Las Vegas. So he's going to be hungover or not. I don't know if he drinks anymore. I don't.
Guaranteed he does not drink.
I know.
He might have a sip of beer after the Super Bowl.
It might. It'll be a Michelob Ultra, the official beer sponsor of the NBA. All right. I don't know what to think of the Raiders at this juncture. I do know that 53.5 is an aggressive total for a game that Tampa Bay, coming off of a really impressive win over Green Bay, has gone from a 1-point to a 3-point favorite again on the road. No fans in the stands. We'll start with you, Joe, while Matt looks up some Andy Reid numbers. I don't know. There's just danger written all over this one. I'm not sure even which way the danger is. I just don't have a read on the Raiders. Do you have a read on them?
I don't. The Raiders have been like one of the harder teams for me to even like just try and like work throughout the beginning of the season. One thing that I guess I'm not ready to completely take the L on the Bucs, but this defense is elite. Like they literally like good. They are so deep. They literally probably the best run stopping defense in the entire league. They have a pass rush. They have all the weapons on the other side. So it's just one of those spots like it's maybe not the same thing as like Peyton Manning when he had that elite Denver defense on the other side and it just didn't matter what Peyton did on offense. Like it's approaching that at points for Tom Brady. And he does have the weapons. So even if that corrects itself a little bit offensively, like this team could make a run. And I didn't want to say that early just because it was such a popular opinion, but they've looked good. I guess Brady on the other side, if you just look at some of the trends in primetime games, he's been really poor, 0-5 against the spread in his last 5. So I still think that Tampa Bay takes care of business here, but I agree with you. The Raiders are a tough team to kind of peg.
My concern on this one from the Raiders side of things is that Tampa Bay's defense is like notoriously aggressive. They are super all out all the time. And the way that you counteract something like that is you're unpredictable. You're able to kind of counterbalance a little bit. They're going to go up against, they think they're getting the run, so they're going to commit 8, 9, 10 guys. And then look at that. It's a quick play action pass to a guy who's wide open. That's how you do it. Variance, variety. The Raiders are hyper predictable. I mean, they're not very multiple at all. You know that they're going to run the ball with Josh Jacobs on first down. You know that they're going to do play action or another run on second down. And on third down, they're going to be looking for Waller or Hunter Renfrow in the slot. Like that's pretty much the entire game plan. It feels very easy for Tampa Bay, even though they have a significant rest deficit compared to the Raiders who are coming off a bye. It seems easy for Tampa Bay's defense to game plan against Las Vegas. And so that concerns me if I were going to try to get in on the Raiders. If I were trying to buy the Raiders, it just doesn't seem like a good 1v1 matchup when it goes to offense versus defense. LaMarca, how do you feel about this game?
Well, first, let's get to Andy Reid.
Yes, thank you.
As a member of the Chiefs with 6 days off or fewer, 6-8 against the spread, 5-5 as a favorite. So it's not a big enough sample size to draw any conclusions there. I don't think that you should really be worried or like use it as a pro or a con, to be honest.
Yeah, fair enough. On to the Raiders.
So the Raiders, I actually think this is a pretty good spot for them coming off the bye.
Okay.
Tampa Bay was in a funk headed into last week, right? Like they were home underdogs against Green Bay. The narrative was that Tom Brady might be washed. Everybody was making fun of the fourth down thing, blah, blah, blah. Now the narrative is, I don't know, Tampa Bay, best team in the NFC.
Yeah.
Gronkowski, is he back? I don't know. He looked pretty good last week.
Right.
So I think that the narrative has just completely flipped. I don't think the Bucs will feel nearly as much pressure or they just won't need to come out and put forth as good of a game as they had last week. Meanwhile, Vegas has been frisky, especially in Vegas.
Right.
They beat the Saints in Vegas. Granted, that was a bit of a watered down Saints team. They've beaten the Chiefs this year. And I think that getting Henry Ruggs back in the lineup is going to make a difference for this team. He gives them an elite field stretcher, right? The one thing that this team was missing was somebody to take the top off the defense deep. You have Hunter Renfrow, you have Darren Waller sort of working the intermediate parts of the field. Now you have somebody that keeps the safeties honest. And even though Derek Carr isn't somebody that you think of as like a great deep ball thrower. He can find him if you just don't cover him, as happened a couple of times versus the Chiefs. So I think that this is a pretty sneaky spot for the Raiders. I'm imagining that Tampa Bay is going to be a very public team. You look at it like, man, they're the best team in the NFC. They're laying only 3 points. So I'm going to hold out here. I think maybe this spread will rise as we get later in the week. Okay. And I imagine that I will be on the Raiders.
Okay. I think that's fair. As much as we want to, talk up Tampa Bay's defense, and I think that's valid, they also have a pretty good offense. So, whereas I can't say the same, even if we're going to give a lot of credit to the Vegas offense, I can't say the same about the defense. I think that it is gearing up to be at least a very interesting game at the least. And the total on this one, 53.5, indicates that it should be pretty fun. So we get a good Sunday night football game after whatever the hell it was last week. Let's get into the 2 Monday games, because that's I don't know why on the current thing. No, we haven't talked about Pittsburgh and Tennessee, which is the best game on Sunday. Mm-hmm. What the hell? I don't know why this is broken down this way. It's a 1 p.m. game. I should have mentioned it way earlier, but it's not listed accordingly. Let's talk about Pittsburgh and Tennessee. We saved the best for last, even though there is a terrible Monday night game that we will talk about very quickly. But just go, Joe Holka. How do you feel about a 2.5 point spread for the Pittsburgh Steelers? 1.5 points in some places. That's where it opened up. 51.5 total. Derrick Henry goes off last week. Ryan Tannehill plays a really nice game. They still go to overtime. Pittsburgh absolutely dominates. I don't know. Any sort of market correction here? What are you thinking?
Do you really want to do this? Go to me and talk about Derrick Henry and the Titans right now? This team is not my favorite team right now in general.
That's on you. You can get right back on it. You can get on
nice.
the bandwagon.
If I could get right on Derrick Henry, I'd be buying a lot more stuff for the office here in the background and all that kind of stuff. But I'll say this: the Titans, they've been a really hard team for me to kind of figure out. They're 5-0, obviously this year. They're just 2-3 against the spread on the season. The Titans, though, they have done relatively well as a home underdog. So in this situation, 7-3 against the spread, 6-4 straight up. The Steelers have been just so good against this division over the past few years. So since the start of the 2014 season, 13-1 straight up. So that's just a spot where I think I'm on the Steelers here. I still believe in them as being one of the better teams in the entire league. The Titans, again, will probably just shove it right down my throat, but I am on the Steelers here.
Are you surprised at all, Matt LaMarca, that the Titans are home underdogs?
Yes, I kind of am. Nobody has been higher than me on Pittsburgh than me since the start of the season. Like, I have been driving the Pittsburgh bandwagon. I have Super Bowl bets on them. I have bets on them to win the division, the conference, everything you could possibly imagine. I have a Steelers team.
You are fully diversified.
That said, like, I'm starting to believe in Tennessee too. I really think that Ryan Tannehill is the real deal. I don't understand why he was so bad with the Dolphins and now he's so good with the Titans. I mean, is it just as simple as Adam Gase is the worst?
No, it isn't that simple. I'll tell you what it is. The second you take Derrick Henry out of the equation, Ryan Tannehill doesn't look good anymore. I'm telling you.
I guess, but we saw Marcus Mariota with this offense for years, and he never reached these heights.
Fair. So that's a fair assessment. They're well coached, Tennessee. They're well coached.
I like the Titans. Joe has a trend about Pittsburgh versus the AFC South. I don't know how relevant that is. We're talking about a team
that's fair.
Is pretty newly constructed. This version of the Titans hasn't been around very long. I think that I would have this as with Tennessee as like very, very slight favorites.
Guys, before we move on, we should talk about the Schefter bomb that just came through, because I know we already talked about the Jets and we talked about the Dolphins. Looks like the Dolphins are naming Tua as their starting quarterback going forward. So interesting.
Wow.
Schefter bomb 1 minute ago. So if anyone listened to the Dolphins analysis from earlier, just keep in mind that Ryan Fitzpatrick will now be backing up against the Jets.
Well, how does that change it? Because we talked a good deal. I don't know. Does that change anything for you guys?
It hurts my feelings a little bit.
Are you still on board with them being the best team in the division? That's why I wanted to bring it up. I wanted your take on it first.
It was inevitable, right?
Fitzpatrick's been good, and
I know.
Tagovailoa is a complete question mark. There's going to be a learning curve for a rookie. I mean, you could make an argument that this increases the ceiling for the team if he is good right out of the chute. So maybe for my plus 700 to win the division bet, this actually
Did you
is
already
a positive.
take that bet? Or
Oh,
was
it's
that
in.
just something? Oh,
It's in,
damn.
baby.
That's a tough break for you. Maybe you can get it at 900 now, because I do imagine those odds are going to go down just because of, I don't know, a
Yeah,
new variable.
I would say that the odds of them going 8-8 have decreased, but their odds of going to 10 wins maybe have increased slightly. That's
Okay.
my take. At least that's how I'm trying to spin it.
I mean, to be fair, they're in a bye week. This was probably always expected, right?
Oh yeah,
And
especially
no one
a
expected
bye
Ryan
into the
Fitzpatrick.
Jets.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
can't ask for a better window than that.
Totally. So they had this window from day one, and I'm sure Ryan Fitzpatrick knew about it. He's been just having fun. He's making good money. Like he's got it pretty easy, but he was playing good. And I guess if Tua struggles, I don't know what kind of a leash they'll give him, because they're playing for something now. But listen, I think that's a well-coached team. So if they're seeing that he's good enough to play in practice, that probably good enough to play in the games, and especially against the Jets with 2 weeks to prepare against, again, the worst team we've ever seen. We do got to get in 2 more games here real fast, but appreciate you dropping that bomb on us there, Joe.
I don't.
Yeah,
I more or less did it. I did it because I don't want to edit that out, so it was selfish.
No, it's no one's arguing with it, because that is legit bomb. Now, if you were like,
important. The Dolphins are relevant now, baby. I'm telling you.
Can we go Fitz to the Cowboys? Like that would be just amazing.
how about Fitz the Niners? Gardner Minshew, Justin Herbert, Chargers, Jacksonville, a game that will surely be buried deep on the CBS slate, as it always is, and we'll catch the very end of it. Every Chargers game has to be the thing to close out that window on CBS after we switch from your local game. Chargers are 7.5-point favorites, speaking of rookie quarterbacks, with Justin Herbert. 49-point total in this game. Joe Holka, is Jacksonville officially tanking, or are they just making it look like it?
I don't know what to do with this team at all. I think that, I guess, one thing that really worked out last week was just being short on Gardner Minshew in that game against Detroit. He definitely struggles against man coverage, and that's something that we should look into going forward. So this is a spot that's kind of on the other end of the spectrum where the Chargers play a lot more zone. So I could see it being a reasonable game in terms of scoring. I think that I have the Chargers overall in this spot just because I think they're a better team. I think Justin Herbert is someone I would rather be long on than Gardner Minshew. But this is a tough game. These teams are both so bad overall that I just don't think it's a spot that I'm going to be gravitating towards in DFS, and in the betting markets. I think I'm going to have to look into it a little bit deeper, if I'm being honest.
Talk to me, LaMarca.
I don't think the Chargers are so bad. I think that's a tough group to lump them in with. I really think that Justin Herbert has played great. They're coming off of a bye. I think, again, favorites on the bye week or off the bye week is a situation that I target often. And they're going to be a contrarian favorite, which I like. They're only getting 36% of the spread bets to start the week. Those bets account for 75% of the money. I think that this is going to be a sharp spot to buy a big favorite, which is pretty rare. So I like the Chargers.
I'm with you. I think that's where I'm at. But again, Jacksonville, who the hell knows? And something to keep an eye on throughout the week, because it's a pretty big total too. Not relative to the rest of the slate, but in general, 49 is not a small number. So something to keep an eye on there. The Monday night game is Chicago, 5-1. Everyone hates them. Chicago against a 4-2 Rams team that's coming off of an embarrassing loss to the Niners. Almost like 3/4 of the bets right now are on the Bears, who are getting 5.5 points. It started at 7. Total on this one is 46. Chicago's defense is like legitimately good. Their offense, not so much. Joe Holka, is this the time to get in on the Bears, or do the Rams get right?
I think these defenses are actually structured relatively similarly. We got Khalil Mack and then a very strong secondary for the Bears. And then we have Aaron Donald and then a relatively strong secondary for the Rams. So both of these teams are like where they're vulnerable is against the run. So who do you think is going to be able to run the ball more effectively in this game is probably where you should be placing your bets, in my opinion. I guess the problem is the run game hasn't been very strong for these two teams overall anyways. So I think that the Bears would be the side that I would like in this game, although I think that it's going to be a lower scoring affair because if it does end up being more running, I just don't think there's going to be a ton of plays in this game overall. But how do you feel about it, LaMarca?
I think this is probably a spot for the Rams, in my opinion. Like, just again, the narrative now is that Chicago is kind of underrated after they're 5-1 and everybody thinks they're trash. So I think that maybe the pendulum will start to swing in the other direction. And headed into this week, now granted, like these don't take the week 6 numbers into account, but Chicago was 23rd in DVOA and the Rams were 4th. Those numbers will adjust with the Rams losing and with the Bears winning, but it still looks like a big mismatch on paper. If Chicago can run the ball with David Montgomery, it will be the first time in his career that he's had a good game running the ball. Like, that guy sucks. I'm sorry,
man.
He really is not good.
It's really bad.
I was a little bit surprised for the Rams to not see more Cam Akers in that contest. I don't even know if he saw an opportunity.
I don't recall one. He's still got that rib thing, but I like Henderson. I think that he's actually pretty good, but there were a lot of ghosts of Todd Gurley out there.
So I think again, this is going to be another public dog. I'm going to look to be on the other side of it.
All right, before we get out of here, guys, I want your best bet. It's Tuesday. Stuff's going to change, but just looking at it now, knowing what we know, and even, putting a little bit of prediction in here if you're so inclined, what's your best bet of the week? We start with you, Joe Holka.
Yeah, I like the Packers in this spot after they kind of had a letdown last week. You heard Aaron Rodgers talk about it in the press conference after the game. This team was a little bit too high on themselves. They kind of needed to be knocked down a few pegs. So I think they rebound here against a Texans team that hasn't really been able to stop anyone. So that's going to be my pick this early in the week. Also, though, before you close out and get to LaMarca's pick, make sure everyone that's live right now sticks around for the premiere that we have directly after this. Had an awesome interview that we recorded with Nick Kypreos in the Stanley Cup winning coach and John Cooper in the Tampa Bay Lightning. Awesome conversation. So that's going to be in about 20 minutes. So if you're here hanging out, talking some football, be sure and check out that interview also.
It's a good get, guys. It's a good get for the old Kipper. All right, LaMarca, who you got? Best bet of the week.
I'm going to be taking the Washington football team. That's my best bet. I like them as dogs, just causing havoc against Andy Dalton.
Okay. I like Carolina against the Saints. I think that the Saints are secret trash, and I think 7.5 is too rich for what they've shown me so far this year. And while Carolina isn't that good, they're not that bad either. So I like Carolina plus 7.5 in New Orleans at the Dome. All right, this has been Bets Against the Spread. If you're not using blitzbet.eu, do that. Fix that. Get on it right now. Best spot for all your betting needs, blitzbet.eu. Check out all of Matt LaMarca's stuff on Line Movement. Joe Holka is pretty much streaming all day, every day here on the channel. Stick with him, other than the Kipper Show, which is going to be really good today because, anytime you get a Stanley Cup winning coach, you got to watch that. I'll be back on Sunday morning show, but Holka, if you need anything, just hop onto the chat. Holka's literally doing this all day. LaMarca, what do you got coming up on livemovement.com?
Got my regular weekly betting piece. We had another week in the black last week, which was good.
Oh.
I'll be back Thursday night with Joey Holka and Peter Overzet doing our Island game preview. Then Monday Night Football, which it looks like, at least as things stand now, we're only going to have one Monday night game this week.
Hey,
what a disaster.
Let's do it.
What are we going to do?
What a time to be alive. Though I won't lie, I'm kind of missing the fact that we don't have any Tuesday or Wednesday football this week. So, all right, we'll talk to you guys soon. Have a good one.